Welcome to our last session of the day. We've got the lightning talks. This is the last session before the reception later. Just a quick note, if you were planning to come to the reception but you're not planning to come now, if you could just let the people at the front desk downstairs know, that would be great. So these are going to be the lightning talks. We've got 12 talks in 60 minutes, so it's going to be rapid fire. Everyone's going to be moving on. I'm not going to come up and introduce the speakers between the sessions. They're just going to come up and introduce themselves. It's 5 minutes. Everyone's keeping to time, and we're going to get out of here on the hour. And it's all going to go swimmingly. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up our first speakers. Amelie, Suzanne? Just perfect. So, Amelie from Cambridge University Library talking about AI for Cultural Heritage Hub.
Hello everybody, I'm Amelie Roper, I'm Head of Research at Cambridge University Library, and I'm going to introduce you very quickly to the AI for Cultural Heritage project, also known as ARCH. So, over the next 5 minutes, I am going to tell you when it's taking place, who is working on it, what it is, why we're doing this, how we're doing this work, and then I'll finish of details of how to keep in touch. So have your phones ready because there's a QR code on that last slide. So when is the ARCH project taking place? It's a 14-month research project. It's running until the end of March 2026. It's a short experimental project rather than a proof of concept. It's a short experimental proof of concept project rather than an attempt to build a polished hub, and it's funded by AI at CAM. So an important aspect of the project is our interdisciplinary team. So it's led by Cambridge University Library, but we've got lots of different people working on the project, from AI experts to digital humanities specialists, and also some academics working with collections. You can see a few of us on the slide here, but there are about 16 of us in total working on the project. There are also 4 of us here today at the conference, so do come and say hello and ask us more about what we're doing. So, what is ARCH? So it's a research project to create a workspace and community of practice that will enable non-technical users, so practitioners working in galleries, libraries, archives and museums, and academics working with collections, to analyse cultural heritage data with AI tools in a secure environment. So cultural heritage data for us means data about the items in cultural heritage collections, so metadata, and also images of items in our collections. So when I talk about the hub, I mean 2 things. Firstly, this secure workspace or platform where users can log in, upload their own cultural heritage data and experiment with AI tools that meet their use cases. And then secondly, a community of practice so that we can support each other in using the hub. Creating a secure workspace is a really important aspect of our project, as lots of cultural heritage data is sensitive for reasons like copyright, data protection, and outdated or offensive language. So we wanted to create a space where AI could be used on cultural heritage data without that data being retained by AI engines and exposed outside of the hub. So what can the hub do? At the moment, the key things it does are it transcribes handwritten, printed, and TypeScript text. It can create and enrich metadata. It can undertake text and sentiment analysis. It can label images and analyse them, and it can generate text from audio. It also includes how-to guides for common use cases and some utilities to assist with things like converting PDFs into images. So why are we doing this? So in addition to the concerns that we have around data sensitivity, there's a much bigger reason that will be very familiar to all of us. So it's really about making collections much more accessible, be that by providing descriptions of them or putting them into formats that actually meet users' needs. So how are we developing the hub? So we're using 6 case studies, which I'll come to very briefly in a minute, drawing on collections from across Cambridge. So we're using 5 different collections from the University of Cambridge. And each case study aims to address one or more challenges. So unlocking inaccessible data, reassembling fragmentary and dispersed cultural objects, and integrating expert knowledge into AI algorithms. And our case studies, the card catalogues and zoology registers case studies are aiming to transcribe analogue metadata into a format that we can use in library and museum systems. The case study on specimen labels is looking at the identification of hands, so who wrote the labels and who collected the specimens. The Book of the Dead is about reconstructing a papyrus that's in thousands of pieces. The case study on the lectionary is about using machine learning to trace glyphs and other features in that manuscript. And our last case study is using generative AI on scrimshaw, so objects made from whalebone, baleen, and teeth, to help us to unpick the impact of colonial legacies on the work we are doing. And now for the slide where you need your camera. We hope that this has left you wanting to know more. If you're here in person, come and talk to the 4 of us that are here. You can also keep in touch by joining our mailing list and checking our website. Thank you.
Next challenge, lightning talk with 2 persons. Hi, my name is Claeyssens. I'm a curator of digital collections at the KB, National Library of the Netherlands, also chair of the Europeana Research Community, and I'm here with Antoine, R&D manager of Europeana Foundation. Yes, these are our slides. In the spirit of the Europeana Network Association, we are representing quite a large group of people. They are listed over here because this is the result, this lightning talk is the result of an online conversation organized by a working group from Europeana Network Association, the working group on data sheets for digital cultural heritage. And no, Europeana is not paying me for all the name dropping, but I think they should start considering this. We have one really important call to action: write it down, which means please, please, please provide rich documentation with your cultural heritage data sets. There are quite a few formats out there, quite a few templates out there to do that. All of them are fine. Most of them are based on this paper published a few years ago, where data sheets have been introduced to the machine learning community. In cultural heritage, we are adapting this format. A lot of people are working on that. There are data sheets, there are data envelopes, whatever. The idea is, please use one of those because it's important to have this rich documentation. Like I said, there are various models out there, various templates. You can see some of those over here listed. When you look at those, when you compare those, you will see that there are not that many differences. And there's good news, we're working on aligning those. Antoine.
Thank you. So, I'm going to talk about the ongoing work with respect to our efforts on description of data sets. So the first line of work is to enhance the machine readability. So those of us working on the data sheets proposal are working on aligning with the W3C standard DCAT for the describing dataset, more specifically for the DCAT application profile that's being used in many European dataset catalogs and data spaces. And that's also the format which is used by the data envelopes. So that's a good anchor for alignment. Then the second line of work is the creation of an editor tool. So the ShockNL agency is funding the development of a lightweight free edition tool that's going to allow the creation of both data sheets and data envelopes and export them both for human consumption, so as a human readable template, and for machine consumption using this DCAT work that I've mentioned earlier. We also intend to work on documentation. So we want to enhance that. The first focus is to produce more examples so that people can see what we are talking about. So I don't see him, but there's Jörg Lehman he's over there at the back. So he has created a number of data sheets that, one of them you can see on this slide. There's another one from Maria, a data envelope. We plan to make them, actually some of them are already accessible online, and we plan to have more documentation, more guidelines. We are writing a joint paper that started, so we hope to make things easier for user. And we hope to do that, it's nice to say, but we also want to help uptake. So there are two things that I want to mention. So the first one is that data sheets are going to be used in a coming effort on making a dataset catalog for the common European data space for cultural heritage. And the Heyrat Institute is also going to have its own catalog using data envelopes. So by the way, those are sort of maybe the first time it's publicly announced that we are going to have those things. So that's kind of good developments. And we plan to also have more community outreach. So we are here on the shoulder of some big community support, big community work, and we plan to do more. So I'm not going to go through these things. There's the QR code. You can scan it. You can see the slides, and please have a look. Talk to us if you've got any reactions. If you would like to write your dataset descriptions, we're here to help. And we're quite many, so you've got a luxury of amount of email address to browse and to use. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's say you're a Norwegian cat historian, and you want to find and read every single book in Norwegian history that contains this particular illustration of a cute cat. What do you do? Well, you can come to the National Library of Norway. You can sit down and you can flip through every single page of every single book ever published in Norway and note down every single time you see this cat. It might take a while. I'm Maria. I work at the National Library of Norway. And today I'm going to talk about image search for a large library collection. So one thing we do at the Digital Humanities Lab at the National Library is we create tools to help researchers and other curious people explore and analyze our digitized collection. But in order to create tools that search for images, we first need a way to measure image similarity. And to do this, we can start by remembering that digital images are just numbers. Numbers that measure how light and dark each pixel is. And that's excellent news, because it means we can use maths. And one way we could get a measure of similarity is by simply taking one image and then subtracting another image and see how big the remainder is. The problem is that images are quite complex, and so small visual changes, like simply shifting the cat a few pixels, will lead to big differences if we measure this way. So we need to first calculate some meaningful representation of the image that ignores such small differences, and then look at the difference. So one approach is to take advantage of recent advances in computer vision and use an AI model that's been trained to classify the contents of the image. The idea is that if a model has learned a representation that's useful to classify an image content as containing a cat, a dog, a plane, or whatever, then this representation could also contain useful information when we're looking at similarity. And it turns out that it does, and this allows us to cluster together similar images. So then our first step was to create a prototype image search application based on these embeddings for books published before 1900. So about 400,000 image elements. And you can read more about that work in this paper, which I presented at CHR last year. The next step then is to scale this to over 20 million image elements from our entire book collection. And 20 million vectors is a lot to search through. And what we found is that it is possible, but it requires a vector database with an approximate nearest neighbor search. Otherwise, the lookup time and memory requirements are too severe for us. Next then, we started comparing and evaluating different models on domain-relevant problems, like how robust are they to transforms? How well can they sort images into meaningful categories, and how do they respond to Norwegian? So let's have a very quick look at some preliminary results. First, image accuracy, search accuracy. We took some images, we cropped and rotated them, and then checked how often the original image was retrieved. And we compared 4 different models. The 2 Sigler models performed the best. However, when we added half-toning artifacts, the simpler width actually performed better. We've also done some very preliminary experiments aligning with Norwegian text, and for that, so far, it seems like the explicit multilingual Sigler performs the best. But how does this work in practice? Here's a way too quick video. You can see that you can upload an image, the cat we were looking for example, find some results, and open the book where we got the image from. So we have successfully located the cat. So using AI for image search in books works, and we can implement it for a large library collection. But there's also possibilities for improvements. In the future, we want to expand on these evaluation experiments, we want to visualize the models, and we want to fine-tune models to our domain. This was a way too quick run-through, so if you want some more details, then find me and talk to me later. Thank you.
Hello, so Eva Nieto McAvoy, who's down here, and myself, I'm Jenny Kidd, are here today to tell you about a project and initiative that we've got going on. Oh, thank you very much. So we've decided my job is to squeeze everything into 5 minutes, and Ava's got the fun stuff. She's in charge of the clicker and handing out freebies, yeah. Okay, so we're here to introduce a new resource, which we hope helps cultural professionals to navigate what we call AI afterlives. These are digital architectures that seek to provoke memories, learning, immersion, or engagement through the revival of collections or persons from the past. Moments when an image, an object, a voice, or a face begins to move or to speak again. Of course, this involves using different technologies and approaches under the umbrella of AI. So this bit of work is part of a broader project which is funded by the Leverhulme Trust, which is called Synthetic Pasts. The project explores how media fragments from the past, photos or audio recordings of our deceased relatives, for example, are remediated or reanimated through algorithmic systems, and with what consequences for how we remember. You can find out all about that on our website. There's the obligatory QR code. So here we have some very different real-world examples of AI afterlives that you may be familiar with. We've got the Dali Museum's Dali Lives project from a few years ago, a video installation that features an interactive deepfake of the artist, which was developed in collaboration with an advertising agency. We've got the USC Shoah Foundation's Dimensions in Testimony project on the right-hand side, which enables people to ask questions and prompt pre-recorded testimony from Holocaust survivors. And in the middle, the Hello Vincent experience, which is trained on a corpus of 900 of the artist's letters, so it can generate responses to questions based on those texts. These kinds of approaches are becoming more familiar. But we've been hearing in interviews with cultural professionals for a while now that they feel deeply ambivalent, if not uneasy, about AI's integration into visitor experiences in these ways. Clearly, these approaches raise important questions that we've been hearing all about today. There's the custodianship role of cultural institutions to consider, their bedrock built on claims to integrity, authenticity, and serious scholarship, as well as their inevitably limited resources. There are tensions then, but they can be productive ones. In navigating these issues, cultural institutions can be sites of critical thinking and of ethical literacy. They can remind people that ideas about authenticity are not static, and that data is not only data, it's the traces of people that were left for us to steward. We know that cultural and heritage professionals are reflexive and critical in their uses of these approaches, but in our work we have found that they often face competing pulls from different stakeholders that they don't always feel prepared to navigate. This was highlighted so well in the keynote this morning, we thought. So we decided to work collaboratively with the sector to produce a resource so people can start or lead conversations about all of this within their institutions. We ran a series of workshops exploring challenges and opportunities, where people talked a lot about how using AI intersects with their institutional, professional, and even personal values. And they talked about commemoration, legacy, consent, death, and digital remains. We then developed and road tested a resource, refining it and producing this workbook as a result, which is kind of making its way around the room, and there are copies down the front here. So as you can see, using the workbook is a really early stage exercise. It's super lo-fi, it's designed to be as accessible as possible. It prompts those interested in these topics to think about whether an AI afterlife is a good fit for their work, or to help them articulate why it might not be, or isn't for now, or perhaps not for this particular project or collection. It's aimed at those who are relatively new to these approaches, and we hope you might want to share it with colleagues in your institution. It's a reminder of the values that underpin cultural work, and an opportunity to use these to argue for or against adopting these technologies for your specific institution and your creative or cultural practices. So come and see us if you want a copy. It's also available via the project website, and of course we'd love you to get in touch and let us know what you think. Thank you very much.
All right, let's see if I could give you this elevator pitch in 5 minutes. My name's Alberto Santiago Martinez. I work at El Colegio de Mexico, and I am presenting Legislación Mexicana, a RAG system developed at the Digital Scholarship Unit of our library. The team consists of Rodrigo Cuellar, Aime Javier Cisneros as developers, and myself as project lead. The system represents 12 years of work, originally thought to be a digital humanities project, and in this year it evolved into a RAG chatbot that supports exploration of a large corpus of Mexican laws. In terms of the work, the corpus spans 3 centuries of legal text. It contains over 15 million words and 28,713 legal dispositions, and it is considered a cornerstone of Mexican historical research. We have one of the few complete collections of this work at the library. The inherent challenges of this work is that given its volume of information, it's difficult to navigate, and researchers up to this point were mostly limited to either reading the entire collection or utilizing the indexes. So these indexes did not represent a full vision of the contents. Nuanced information is not represented and difficult to search. So we initially sought to solve this problem by transcribing the entirety of the collection and create metadata records for each document. With this, we could allow researchers to conduct text mining and search the corpus through metadata searches. Fortunately, this work that we conducted paved the way for us to develop our first RAG system. In terms of the objective of the project, our goal was to develop a RAG system that mimics how we provide research support services at the library. We wanted users to be able to ask quantitative questions such as how many documents mention Texas, how many patents were registered from 1890 to 1920, but also ask open-ended questions such as, are philosophical matters discussed in the legal text, or how did laws concerning settlement evolve over time? However, generative AI operates counter to how reference librarians operate, in that Gen AI tends to synthesize content and generate concrete answers, while reference librarians rarely give direct answers to research questions, and instead we strive to help users to identify relevant materials that allow users to come to their own conclusions. So along with this, we wanted the system to not hallucinate and align with our institutional culture in how we communicate. The solution was to create an agentic system consisting of a hybrid architecture split between Elasticsearch and embeddings, and the answers being generated with Gemini Flash 2.5. The system determines the nature of the question and channels it to either greeting, metadata searching in Elasticsearch, or searching the embeddings for open-ended questions. And the generated response shows the titles, a generated summary, and the relevance to the question, and a link to the document. We evaluated the performance of the system with two strategies. The first was with RAGIS, which is a Python system that evaluates the quality of a RAG system's answers. You get two LLMs to evaluate what another LLM produced, basically. The second form was to sit down with professors who were well-versed in the body of knowledge, and we found that every time they sat down with us, they discovered new information that they weren't previously aware of, and were surprised by the output. And with that, they also identified new research opportunities in these sessions. In terms of future work, we hope to improve the agent's ability to determine the nature of a question and what systems it should employ. We want to continue basically to be able to discern the nature of the question and whether it should go into Elasticsearch or go into the embeddings. And we want to continue user testing to measure the quality of answers with librarians versus AI, which kind of reminds me of how the stories of steam engines versus men in the 19th century. We want to continue aligning the tool with the library values, responsible reference practice, and transparency, and utilize local models with discriminative AI, better infrastructure, and secure funding. If anyone is interested in supporting us, please contact us. We need more money. In terms of the project revealed to us the difference between Gen AI and library reference services. It raised essential questions about the quality of the output for research, and how prompt engineering is essential for us to be able to have it respond as the way we responded at Colegio de Mexico. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aida, and I come from the National and University Library of Slovenia. Let's see if it works. It works. And today I will talk to you a little bit about our problems with OCR. We thought that this problem is already solved, but surprise, for some small languages, we still have a lot of problems with OCR. In our National and University Library, we have a process of digitization, which is pretty well established, and it's all in-house. And in our process, we use ABI Fine Reader for our OCR. And this is usually pretty good and sufficient for our needs, but for some cases, it's not as good. And this is especially true for historical newspapers, for typewritten documents, and of course for handwritten documents. And today I will tell you a little bit about our work with historical newspapers. And the reasons that our OCR is not that good is, of course, our special characters, which have the reverse circumflex on top. And in the historical newspapers, we also have a lot of accents, which tends to confuse ABI a lot. We also have some issues with quality of print or even quality of scans. So these are some examples of our special characters that you can see here, which tend to confuse our OCR engine. So since we already have a proprietary engine for this, we were looking for some open source or open models to solve this problem that we have. So we tried these three that are on the screen. But yeah, we had a bit of an issue how to evaluate the results. So everything I'm telling you is based basically on our on a vibe check. It's not truly a research results. But in 2 sentences, I can say that all results from all 3 models were much better than what we already had. So everything was better in this sense. But tools have different sets of strengths and weaknesses. So first we tried Tesseract, which is the most widely used, and it was really not improving that much with the special characters, as you can see here. With Surya, it was better with the special characters, but it was super slow compared to others. Pero OCR is the one that performed the best for us. It was pretty fast, and the special character recognition was basically perfect, and we were really happy with that. The only issue with this model is that the order of reading is sometimes a bit jumbled. So we are thinking how to solve this, maybe even with the use of some LLM to try to match the articles together. So the reason that this model performed the best on our text is, first of all, it was the ground truth that it was trained on was very similar to our own. Just the historical period was the same. But more importantly, the Czech language is kind of similar to Slovenian language. I don't know if you know about the Slavic languages in general. Our special characters are a subset of the Czech special characters. And this was a major reason that this worked very well for us. So we will use this to improve the OCR of our historical newspapers. We also looked at the typewritten documents with the same model, and we found the results were pretty good. Actually, the problem is where the results are not good. It has a pretty heavy bias for Czech language, and it's pretty funny to see this Czech-Slovenian hybrid. We also tried, they have a model for handwritten documents, but this did not perform well, so we are currently using Transcribus for this. So all in all, I think the lesson is, even though there are a lot of really advanced models, we still need specialized models for smaller, underrepresented languages. But also, there is quite an added value just to look around what other similar languages to yours are doing. And this might already solve your problem in quite a good degree. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm James Lee. I'm the Associate University Librarian for Academic Innovation at Northwestern University. And today I want to share our transdisciplinary vision for how libraries can surprisingly use AI to advance science through the humanities. My talk is a little different. So my lightning talk offers a very specific response to the growing call in the cultural heritage community to adopt a more active stance in the development of AI tools and AI fundamental research. So 2 years ago at Northwestern, we made transforming digital research one of the central pillars of our library's new vision. To enable this vision, we created a new academic innovation division as a research arm embedded within the library, an intellectual nexus where we integrate directly into Northwestern's faculty research communities in collaborative projects based on a team science model. Some of the work I'll show you today is in partnership with our School of Journalism, statisticians and data scientists in our College of Arts and Sciences, and network theorists in our School of Engineering. Our question to our collaborators was not how can libraries use AI? They were not interested in this question. Instead, we challenged them with a provocation. What if the next major scientific discovery doesn't come from a lab, but from a library collection? Here's one of our major findings from one of our studies. We analyzed over 8 million JSTOR articles spanning 100 years using LLM agents, network science analysis, and time series statistics. We found, quite excitingly, significant evidence that humanities discourse systematically anticipates scientific discourse by 15 to 25 years. And I'm sorry the x-axis is cut off here. That's simply from 1900 to 2020. And if you're interested, I can tell you the composite measure of signal on the y-axis later, if you want to chat. Climate metaphors specifically appear in 1920s literature, such as instability, collapse, and planetary crisis, decades before climate science existed as a formal discipline. You can find more details about our findings and our specific ensemble of methods in the conference abstract. The article we're collaboratively publishing challenges scientists to think of archives and collections as sensors, cultural instruments that register the tremors of societal change long before science even names them. They can capture how societies process emerging realities before they have scientific labels. Humanists, we argue, crystallized the shifts in how people understood their relationship to the natural world in language and texts that are contained in our humanities collections. These findings can reshape our understanding of how science can define grand challenge issues, such as climate change. Our collections collectively can serve as a forecasting instrument of sorts, or an early warning system encoded in textuality. Now, we're applying this vision to our distinctive local collections related to climate change. Northwestern holds the largest archive of US environmental impact statements, composed of over 34,000 microfiche containing 3.5 million pages documenting how environmental decisions have been debated, contested, and reimagined over 5 decades. In every single government project that cost over $1 million. Last year, we received a $453,000 national leadership grant from the IMLS to build an AI-powered research agent for advanced search and discovery across our local distinctive collections. So now we're applying this research agent to this EIS collection as a complex, multimodal, and multidisciplinary data set to really push the logic of our agentic framework. That is currently in prototype, but we want to roll it out to our other collections. This slide shows how we're transforming the collection into a data set ready for post-training, fine-tuning, and context engineering. The agent framework directly addresses research questions from our humanities, journalism, and science collaborators. The agent uses semantic similarity to uncover patterns in the decades-long struggle between government policy, industry, lobbying, and community resistance. And we can extract structured data tables to see if government statistical predictions of environmental impact were indeed accurate. In both cases of archives of sensors and AI agents for distinctive collections, library-based AI can bring together teams of humanists and scientists to reveal what neither could discover alone. I admit this is not a simple idea to put in practice, but we believe it represents a new opportunity for libraries to support and advance the research mission of our institutions in ways that commercial AI companies simply cannot, and it's not part of their mission. Libraries can function as a genuine intellectual crossroads where transdisciplinary discovery happens, and in the most surprising cases, where humanities advances science itself. Libraries can become more active by directly contributing to the research discoveries that will shape the next decade of AI's impact on society. Let's talk more about how this can happen, and we're looking for collaborators. Thank you very much.
Hello. Let's practice some speed talking. Okay. Hi, my name is Rasa from the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision. I'm here to introduce you to a collective intelligence exercise that we did together with colleagues from Europeana, and I'm representing the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision. And our exercise focused on the topic of culture for AI. Very importantly, not AI for culture. Where do we stand? It might seem quite obvious to repeat this, but I think it's worth remembering that we, as the digital heritage community, are not really new to the AI topic, and it did not come on stage when ChatGPT was released. We have more than 20 years of experience of actually working within this sphere, specifically in the machine learning development arena, with a clear focus on developing and adopting task-specific AI solutions, such as OCR and others that have been mentioned throughout today. But what has happened since the generative AI Kraken has been released into the wild is that a lot of these AI conversations have been much more pervasive, and they are no longer contained to niche communities like ours. And also a lot of new uncertainties have emerged, which got many of us thinking about our role in this whole new AI landscape, not only in terms of kind of new use cases, work processes, and skills that we need to have, but also what kind of roles and responsibilities does the society actually need us to take on in this new landscape. But when we start thinking about these topics, it's quite difficult because we always throw around these vague terms such as ethical AI, participatory AI, trustworthy AI, responsible AI. I've been in this sphere for the last 5 years and I could not define a single one of these terms. And I hope I'm not the only one. So how do we remove some of this ambiguity? How do we remove some of this vagueness and actually get to the bottom of things and really find what's hiding behind these terms? So, to make a step towards this, we launched what we called an alignment assembly on culture for AI. And in a nutshell, it's a participatory methodology using a survey platform called Polis, and it is used to gather intelligence from a community via an iterative online consultation process. And what it means in practice is that we invited heritage professionals from different walks of life to pose provocations and dilemmas in the form of statements like the ones that you see here, examples on the screen right now. And then the community voted on these statements by agreeing, disagreeing on them, and from here we could really identify areas of strong consensus, disagreement, or also uncertainty. In 6 weeks over the summer, almost 400 participants took part. Quick raise of hands, how many of you were part of this process? Quite a few. You're in a really great room then. So we gathered over 10,000 votes, over 54 statements, and on the screen here you see each statement is represented by a small black dot. So you can see that on the left we see a large amount of statements that have a strong consensus, and then fewer statements in the middle and on the right, which refer to the statements that indicate some disagreement and uncertainty. So, what did we learn? Well, looking at all of the data, we find kind of two overlapping opinion groups. 1/3 represent what we labeled as boundary setting. So these are people who are critically thinking about the use of AI. They don't buy into the idea of FOMO, and they want to resist the constant focus on AI. And the rest of the group, the 2/3, are opportunity seekers. So these are folks who want to advocate for us to embrace AI tools and see resistance to do so as an actual risk to our sector. Now, when we saw these results, it was really tempting to just say that these are two separate camps, but things are definitely not as black and white, and we actually see this much more in terms of a dynamic spectrum. Many of us actually hold both of these opinions at the same time, sometimes within one sentence. I definitely do. And we argue that actually embracing this complexity and a bit of uncertainty and tension can actually be the superpower of our community. And we should practice kind of being in this place of friction by intentionally seeking out kind of this ambiguity and including it in our conversations, in our actions, and in our policies. For those who are attending the event in person, we have created these stickers that you can put on your lanyards, at the back of the lanyard, and you can indicate where do you find yourself in the spectrum. So please do that right now or later on and use that as a conversation starter. We have our report with results, but most importantly, QR code. And find us if you want to chat more.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here so late. And I, too, will attempt to bring you in to this new project called AI Bridges. My name is Shani, and I think you're all probably collaborators on this project, although you still don't know it. So let's start. I'm an educator, researcher, lecturer at the university, and also a long-time free knowledge advocate. This work, I've been collaborating on various open projects. I think the most prominent or well-known has been Wikipedia, rather the Wikimedia movement, and that work has sort of infiltrated my academic work in various ways, in my teaching, in my research, and that has brought me now as a postdoc Marie Curie Fellow to the Digital Humanities Research Hub, where I'm doing this project called AI Bridges. It is an acronym, as every European Commission project should have. We have them as well. And before I tell you a bit about the project and sort of invite you in, I'm curious, how many are representing institutions? Please raise your hands from the audience. Quite many of you. How many of you have been doing open work, so trying to make your work accessible through various Wikimedia projects? That would be Wikipedia, Wikicommons, Wikidata, Wikibase. Don't be shy, I know you're there. Yes. How many of you have found it really, really hard to do? Don't be shy again. And how many of you have been trying to incorporate AI into or more specifically Gen AI, into the work that you've been trying to do? A few of you as well. Well, AI Bridges is really, from me, working in that space for a really long time, knowing that on the one hand, we have various institutions, and to me, that's not just cultural heritage. To me, that's academic institutions as well, who have what I call academic heritage to make accessible and there in a sustainable way, and really also governments, really any institution that holds knowledge or data. Then we have our fabulous movement, but really linked open data platforms in general. And we know that when these two things collaborate, it can be amazing when it works, but it really is so damn hard. Now, the new kid on the block is Gen AI. So can we really somehow harness Gen AI to help us do that work that we know has been so difficult for so many years? AI Bridges is really about trying to create 3 main bridges. The project is based on 3 really keys or avenues of work. One is trying to create a pipeline for cultural heritage institutions, something very low code, no code that everyone can use easily, hopefully, right? To make their donation to our platforms in an easy way. This includes Wikidata mostly as a case study, but also Wikibase, as we see it as an ecosystem, not just this. The second part is really the other way, right? We don't just donate data, we then want to do something with it. We want to tell stories with data, we want to visualize it, we want to do cool things. For that, we need to connect LLMs to linked open data, which at the moment is not happening. My gosh, I remember the moment in time where I understood that these LLMs are only trained on Wikipedia, but not on Wikidata, which is sort of a weird thing because it is machine readable, but there you go. It's going to be probably solved in the coming years, but for now, there's these silos that are happening and we need to connect them through RUGs, MCPs, advanced technologies and whatnot, but we need to create that pipeline to also make sure that when we ask LLMs, they give us answers that are relevant to our content. And then we also want, because we know institutions, and you'll never have enough resources to do all the work that you need to do on metadata. This is why we invented crowdsourcing. And so we want to see if we can somehow engage students, engage the public in doing this work. So this is really ambitious, as you can imagine, for a 2-year project. It was never meant to be done alone. I have some core collaborators. I'll skip that. Because, but it is important to know that I'm collaborating already with Wikimedia UK, Wikimedia Deutschland, who are the custodians of Wikidata and Wikibase, Wikimedia Brazil, and Claeyssens, who are working on open source LLMs. And I want to invite you all to get involved. You can help us by, first of all, interviewing for this project. The pipeline we're working on developing is not going to be developed before we understand the hurdles so far. Second, you can donate data. Give us a sample. It can be up to 500 records, and that will help train materials. And you can be thought partners. Come talk to me, and thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Chavez-Heras. I am here to tell you about the Intelligent Systems for Screen Archives project. This is a project that is funded by the BFI National Lottery under the Innovation Challenge Fund. And these are our partners, which comprise 5 moving image archives in the UK, Film Archives UK as an organization that groups them together as well. And on the side of King's College London, which is the academic partner, we have King's Digital Lab, who's driving the technical innovation of this project, the Department of Digital Humanities, which is where I am based, and the e-research infrastructure, which provides the compute for this project as well. So why ESA, or why this project? The idea is to be able to drive creative experimentation with AI tools and techniques in the space of screen heritage sector in the UK, especially moving image archives. This is a very quick overview of how we're going to do this, but I'm not going to tell you how. If you want to know how, you're going to have to look us up and find us later. But I'm going to tell you what we've been doing and two aspects of this specifically. So we've engaged the archives through a series of interviews in the past year. The project runs for 2 years. It ends in 2027. And from these, we've developed these 4 use cases that I'm going to very quickly go through right now. So for the use case number 1, semantic segmentation at scale, we have this notion, and this you can see the pipeline there, about breaking up larger collections of video resources and moving images into, essentially atomize it into loads of different fragments that we can then parse and review using some of the techniques that we've seen earlier, indexing, RAG, etc. Semantic segmentation, we've been using it with, we've been trying to do this with open source models. So for example, models from the Quen family, and we've been experimenting with different approaches to do this, which you can also look up in our website. Place-based search and retrieval. So this is an idea about trying to link moving images to the place where they belong, but also to the places that they refer to. This is an example with using a map interface, but the example on the left is also about visual features, matching visual features with place features so that we can enrich a sense of place for many of these regional and national archives, moving image archives have. Then we also have automated audio description. This is not a work, the technical part is being, we actually found that there's loads of very cool projects that are already working on this. So a shout here to Adrienne and Andy Gilbert from TCAT, and also I think Giles is in the room as well. So in this, we're brokering more of a relationship between the people who hold and the stewards of the moving images and some of the tools that can be used for audio description, which is the image that you see here on the left. There is a virtuous cycle here of exchange between data and images and moving images as well. They don't work as well with archive data yet, but they will if there is more collaboration between data holders and tool makers. So that's use case number 3. And then we combine all of these into something that we can call algorithmic editing, for example, for creative reuse. The final game for this project, the final end, is to be able to connect some of these collections and connect moving image archives and the work they do with creative industries and with how people reuse and reinterpret moving images as a whole. So what you see on the screen is just an example of a parametric editing interface, which takes large collections of images, breaks it down into smaller bits, and then it creates walks. Either generated walks by geo-walks, visual similarity walks, or generated by speech patterns, etc. So to connect this, we're developing some middleware tools that you can also explore that connect collections to datasets. But I am going to spend the rest of the time that I have, which is probably about 10 seconds, with the QR code. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ana Cordova Crespo, and today I will be presenting our project Arctic Fish Skin and AI. I'm presenting on behalf of Elisa Palomino, who is a fashion anthropologist, as well Anatole Duncan, and me, which is Ana Cordova Crespo. I am a digital fashion designer and cloth 3D specialist based here in London. So these historical images show how communities along the Amur River use fish skin for garments and footwear. And originals are held at the museum, which is actually quite fragile. So this is why digital recreation becomes really important. This is the original pattern that I got from Elisa on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you see the cloth 3D replica that I generated. On the middle, you can see a video of how I created this row pattern using Cloth 3D. In the software, I tried to recreate the pattern so it will behave as it will do in real life. On here, we have the part of the textures and the color. On the left-hand side, we have some real fish skin from Anatole Duncan, and on the right-hand side, the red orchid, which was used by nanais to dye ropes. In the middle, you can see the video of how I created the different panels. So I was using a mix of Photoshop and AI. Photoshop now has AI which allow me to complete the textures, because from the images I couldn't get the entire texture. So I was finishing the texture pattern piece and then generating the parts that were missing. And then after this pattern was finished, I exported it and bring it into Claw, where I actually generated the final 3D pattern. Some of you probably are not familiar with what Claw is. Claw is a software to make digital fashion. So I am originally a fashion designer, but I started developing more into the 3D world. So with Claw 3D, you can develop any garment, CAD, and create patterns as you will do in real life, but just on the computer. So here you can see a bit of the workflow. And then these were some of the images that Elisa gave me. So this is the original robe that I used. So these images were taken from a museum, and I didn't really see the garment. So I created the garment just from the images that you see on the screen. So this is why taking images of close-ups was really important. And then here you can see how I generated the details. So the garment had a lot of small details and a lot of appliques on the sides. I needed to create those details in Illustrator, which is another software. And then after I created the patterns, I then brought them into Claw, which is what you see now on the screen. And then there is where I actually add the fabric, add the color, I create the final texture, and then apply small elements like those mistakes that the garment have, because a lot of times when you're creating things in 3D, they look too perfect, so you need to look for those mistakes in order to make them look as real as possible. This is Anatole. He is in his studio in Germany, and here he is tanning some salmon and sturgeon skins. I use him as the main persona for to carry the garment. So these were 4 profiles of his face and head generated fully with AI. So just from one of the images that you saw before that they were not even that high quality, I could develop these 4 side profiles. Then on here, you can see how I started translating that rope that you can see on the right-hand side into the body of Anatole. This was really important because instead of using a generated avatar, I could use a real nanai. Then this is the process of making the boots, which is quite similar to how I made the rope. But for the boots, I needed to create a texture that you can see in the different panels on the right-hand side. So for this one, I didn't really have the flat pattern, so I needed to use the image of the boots to extract the pattern, and then from there, I started applying all the textures. So this was slightly more complicated than the rope. And as you can see, I use as well a mix of Illustrator and Claw. This is Anatole. On the left-hand side, you can see some historical photographs of Nanai shamans, and on the right-hand side, you can see Anatole today. Then for the final outcome, I created this video generated with Claw, Photoshop, and AI. So as you can see, here is Anatole wearing the robe. So this is fully made in AI. I only imported the garment and I created everything else with AI. So thank you so much for listening. You can connect with us.
Hi everyone. We've made it to the last lightning talk, so thanks for staying through now. I'm Wallace. I'm happy to talk to you today about creating visualizations from multispectral scientific data, and most importantly, I want to talk about ways to incorporate your expertise, your knowledge, your particular task or research question when you're processing these kind of images. I've worked on this project with my collaborators, Carola and Anna. Our backgrounds, as you can see, are in mathematics, so we're really trying to make bespoke models for these kinds of images. This all started as a project looking at some degraded music manuscripts led by Anna in collaboration with some musicologists, some libraries, and other cultural heritage institutes in Cambridge. And we were looking at many different kinds of degradations, where there was erasure, whether mechanical or chemical, bleed-through, palimpsest, damp, anything that obscured the notation. So I've drawn some examples from a 15th century chant at the Granville and Caius College Library, but the methods are quite general and could be used, I think, to recover other kinds of text or notation. For this, we use multispectral imaging, which maybe many of you are familiar with, but just in case not, I'm just going to very, very quickly introduce it. So with the standard digital image, you have a red, green, and blue channel, which quantify the amount of reflectance in red, green, and blue wavelengths. Multispectral imaging just takes that a step further, and instead of 3 channels, we maybe have, here I've added 6 more. I've given some numbers for approximate wavelengths, but really these are just sort of broader bands of light that we're measuring reflectance from. And it can go from UV and infrared through the visible light and so on. So if I take an example of one of these images we get from multispectral, so one of these bands from multispectral data, it might look something like this. You can see some of the dirt on the page. You can see some bleed through, and the notation is fairly clear. If I look at the sort of 8 bands here, you can see different features are sort of pulled out at different wavelengths, depending on the inks and the material properties of what we're working with. But we might want to use this for a particular task. So for example, I might want to say, I really want to see the notation and get rid of this bleed through and other things. They're much more complicated cases, but they don't fit into a lightning talk. So just for a very simple case, I might maybe want to suppress this bleed through and bring out the lines and the music notes, which are actually different inks. So the first step I could do would be to say, what is the best band in our multispectral image and what's the worst? I can quantify that in some sense and using this NPC, normalized potential contrast score, that has some nice mathematical properties, and say, okay, this band, allows us to fairly easily separate out whatever I want to suppress, this bleed through, this background, and I can see the notation on the right. It's not as clear maybe. That's maybe not so helpful for only working with 8 bands. If we're working with dozens or hundreds, which is also common, sometimes called hyperspectral imaging, it can be a little bit more useful. But in any case, we usually don't want to just look at one band, but we want to use the information from all these bands, sort of synergistically combine them together to create even better visualizations. The most common approach is through some deterministic method like principal component analysis, which gives you a set of visualizations of your data that sort of pull out different features. We can sort of choose from among all these different methods or all these possible visualizations, ones that look a little bit better corresponding to our labels. So the one on the right might be slightly better than the one on the left. It corresponds to our labels a bit more. We can push it further, corresponding to our labels or our preferences, with even just a few annotations, a few pixels, or a few choices of which image you prefer, and create sort of even better images. There's sort of a whole host of methods that we could try with that, depending on what you're looking to get out of the data. And it's also quite flexible. So I've given the example with 2 classes, but maybe you want to really segment out where there might be bleed through, where there is sort of the foreground text and where there's the background. And you can do that too. And anyway, there are all these types of methods. If you're sort of interested in these sorts of bespoke and tailored processes, that's always what we're trying to do. So please reach out, come talk to me. I've put my email up there. And also just shout out one last time this AI for Cultural Heritage Hub, which I'm a part of, and which lets us explore some of these questions also. So thank you so much.
All right, a huge round of applause again for all of our speakers. That was fantastic. Everyone kept to time, very respectful. I think we were exactly an hour without me rabbiting on. Right, so thanks so much for being here for the first day of Fantastic Futures. All we have left today is the reception. I hope you can join us from 6 onwards in the Terrace Restaurant in the main building. If you had a poster today, if you could pick it up on the way out, that would be fantastic. We absolutely need you out of here by 5:20 because we've got another event after this. If you need somewhere to go in the meantime, there's lots of lovely cafes and pubs nearby. The gift shop is open in the main building. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the reception later. Thank you.